All right, I think we will start. Thank you very much for joining us today. Our town hall today is on unlocking potential. Why is it unlocking potential? It's because we believe that every child is a reader. They just haven't found their favorite book yet. And we are going to be sharing with you some practical tips on how you can empower your child in reading. Right, it's also very apt that a few days ago on the 23rd of April, we just celebrated our World Book Day, which aims at celebrating the love of reading. So together with me, I'm Miss Sharon Ho, Level Head English Language. We also have Miss Jane, who is the Teacher Library Coordinator. And we're also very honored to have Madam Michelle Yap, who is our chairperson of our parent support group. She also has 3 boys in our school. So she will be sharing some practical tips with us. So this is the program today. Firstly, we're going to share with you on the how to create that home environment that promotes reading. And before that, we will share with you some benefits of reading. So why should your child read? And also, we'll be sharing some reading programs and resources in school that we have, as well as some useful resources before we end off with a question and answer section. So this is the million-dollar question. Why is it that in school we emphasize so much on your child reading? What are the benefits? Right, so research has shown that if we want our children to do well in school and out of school, we need to, above all else, get them to love reading. And according to studies, reading for pleasure is also linked to greater intellectual progress in vocabulary, spelling, and even mathematics. We will share with you some benefits of reading. This list is not exhaustive. So when we encourage our child to read, it leads to, first of all, an increase in reading skills. So the more we get them to read, the more they will get better in reading. And if the child wants to be able to write well, he or she has to read. There is absolutely no shortcut. And reading also expands a child's vocabulary. This will help him or her to be able to make use of these expanded knowledge later on, as well as to expand their worldview, the kind of diverse perspectives that they have, the experiences, the ideas that they may or may not encounter typically or in their immediate surroundings. And with this exposure to diverse ideas, which develops empathy and perspective taking, as well as exposure to language structures and vocabulary, a child will learn how to be able to communicate better. It also develops critical and analytical thinking skills because reading requires children to comprehend and interpret written text, encouraging them to analyze information, make connections, and draw conclusions. This will also enhance their thinking skills. And overall, it also has been shown to improve not just in the area of language, but also in other areas like mathematics. It increases their attention and concentration, and the other benefit is that it helps in relaxation. And these are just some of the benefits. There are many others. I would like to share with you this article that talks about how reading broadens your child's mind. So if we help children to develop a habit of reading from a young age, they will be able to acquire knowledge and language skills that will be critical to them even later on in life, not just immediately in the short term. And also want to introduce to everyone here this book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, which talks about how, like atoms, atomic habits are very small incremental changes. They are small but fundamental, which can lead to remarkable results over time. So just like how we can help them to develop atomic habits that will lead to greater results over time, if children can develop a habit of reading by starting with small consistent actions, they will be able to reap the benefits of reading in the long term, even till their adult years. So the next question that we are wondering about is, how do we then create a home environment that promotes reading? I'd like to share with you this very well-known research that was carried out in the 1990s, named the 30 million word gap. So what is this study about? This study has found that children whose parents were professionals or highly educated parents were exposed to far more spoken words, more than 1,500 words per hour on average, than children from homes on welfare. And the parents who were more educated engaged more with their children in conversations, for example, during meal times, and introduced far more vocabulary to them. Over 1 year, the difference between words exposed to these children by the highly educated parents and less educated parents amounted to a nearly 8 million words. And by age 4, that amounted to a total of 32 million words. So the difference between the two types of homes was not just the number of words, but also the type of words that varied. There was a big gap in the complexity of words being used as well. And what kind of environment did these professional parents use to start conversations with their children? It was during times, for example, during meal times, when they use certain vocabulary and expose their children to more vocabulary. So what this shows us is that the kind of linguistic environment that parents create makes a critical difference in the language acquisition of children. Thus, we want to share with you that your role as parents makes a difference in whether your child reads and how your child reads. Let me share more research findings to you, especially findings that are closer to home in the local context. So there is a research or study done by a group of local NIE professor researchers done on the reading habits of bilingual children in Singapore in the year 2021. And what they have found out is that if we want to be able to raise a successful child who is successful in reading, a bilingual child, we will require concerted efforts from not just the schools, but also families and communities, just like how it takes a village to raise a child. So these are some of the findings and recommendations from this study. If we want to be able to raise successful readers, we have to start with the home. And just like how reading is taught and promoted in schools, we also have to reinforce this and practice them at home. And one of the ways that we can help children to interact with these print books is to read together with them. When we read together with the children, it exposes them to vocabulary, and we also can help them to learn more knowledge about the world, as well as the skills required for learning to read. So all these are modeled by the parents. One of the ways that we can help the children to read is also to use reading apps with them to support their book reading experiences. Later, I will share with you some useful resources that you can consider when parents read with the child with these reading apps. Okay, and also want to share with you something that is quite insightful. Children who have more than 50 books at home, both English and mother tongue books at home, tend to be able to read more daily, as you can tell from the infographic on the left-hand side. So you can see that if they have more than 50 English or mother tongue books at home, the chances of them reading daily will be higher as compared to children who have less than 10 English or mother tongue books. And then they also will be able to read more if they have more books found at home in their home environment. And you can see that in this diagram, children who do not read at all is in a smaller percentage if they happen to have more books at home and their home environment is literary rich or books rich. Some of the ways that parents can enhance books at home is it can be also taking your children to public libraries regularly to borrow books and to encourage them to borrow books from the school libraries. So what are some of the ways that we can create a bilingual reading culture at home? First of all, we can create some cozy places so that children can access books in both languages readily. And reading time has to be built into children's schedules intentionally, and this cannot be something that's incidental or left to chance. It has to be created and carved out. And as and when you have time, you could have casual discussions about what these children or your family members are reading, spark a discussion with them, what they are reading, or to build on what they have read. And I think what is very important is to talk to children about their interests, find out what they're interested in, and then find books that can support and extend what interests them the most. As mentioned just now, we can use the digital platforms like reading apps to read together with children. But one thing to note is that the difference between digital text and print text is that it is quite different in terms of the reading pathways. There are different elements that adults can help children to be familiar with. So you may want to be with your children when you use reading apps instead of letting them use the reading apps on their own. And it is never too early to read to them. At whichever age they can start, and you can read together with them or to them. So to just summarize how to get your little one hooked on reading. First and foremost, Knowing your child's personality and development stage will help you to choose the books that he or she will enjoy the most. And we need to make reading fun as well. When a child associates an activity as a joyful experience, he or she is going to love it and continue with it. And the same goes for reading. We can, for example, use different voices to animate the characters. And perhaps we do not force it if your child is not ready to sit down and read. And there are also everyday opportunities to introduce reading. For example, you can use the things around you. Let's take, for example, a cereal box, signs around you to spark conversations and make that reading fun. So anytime there is a chance or an opportunity to start a conversation with your child, you could engage them in a conversation on what they are currently reading, what they're interested in, what is something that they have learned from the latest book or article that they have read. So these are just some ways that you can start conversations casually around what they are reading and to encourage them to think creatively and build on what they are currently reading. And last but not least, I think we inspire them as adults. So we can lead by example. It is very powerful if you can just show them that you take pleasure in reading. And because our children are observing us as parents all the time, we can be the role model. So we highly recommend that at home, you can be seen reading books or articles, newspapers to inspire your young ones. We would also like to share with you how to pick a suitable book. Sometimes when children do not like a particular book, it could be that that book could be too complex for them, or the vocabulary is too challenging for them. So how do we choose a suitable book? We can use this 5-finger test to help. So first of all, using a book that the child has chosen, something that he or she thinks that they will enjoy, we can flip to the second page, because usually the first page contains the introduction, which may be very short. So the second page will be a good gauge. And then for every word that they are not sure of or do not know, we can hold up a finger. And if there is one figure up, it may be too easy, as you can see from this diagram on the left-hand side. It is 2 fingers up, which means that there are around 2 words that they do not know. This could be just right for the readability or the level of the child. And if it's 3, it could be slightly challenging, but it might be fun to push them to give it a try. If it's 4 or 5, then this book could contain words that could be too challenging and they could try again either next year or when they are ready. So with this simple 5-finger test, you could help your child to pick a suitable book that he or she will be encouraged to enjoy, rather than to struggle reading at every few words or juncture. And also to share some books that you parents can read. These are very good resources that we would like to share with you. On the left-hand side, this book, which is the Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trellis, discusses the benefits of reading aloud to children, the rewards as well as the importance. It is also supported by some anecdotes as well as the latest research, and it also contains a treasury of book recommendations inside. And in the middle, the book Whisperer by Donalyn Miller, it shares about strategies on encouraging independent reading and fostering a deep connection with books. On the right-hand side, Raising Kids Who Read by Daniel Willingham. It's a book on practical guidance for how parents can foster a love for reading in children. So when you're free, I highly encourage you to check these 3 books out to read more about reading or find out more about reading. Okay, now I will pass the time to the best person who can share with us reading programs and resources in school. And this person is Miss Jane, who is the teacher library coordinator of our school.
Thank you, Ms. Sharon. Good afternoon, everyone. Next slide, please. Thank you. So I thought I'll start with the reading resources that we have in school. So as you can see, the total number of books that we have: fiction, 11,000 over books; non-fiction, 4,730 over books. And the numbers are there. As you look at it, each child is allowed to borrow 3 books at a time. And we have 1,265 admirals in school. So that's easily, we have more than 24,000 books available for our children, and that's sufficient numbers. Just want to let you know that in the library, when they come to the library, they will definitely have a book that they can pick and read. What we need is to encourage them, to give them the kind of encouragement so that they will come into the library and actually borrow the books from here. Even if you don't have the time to bring them to the public library, the school library has sufficient numbers of books. Next slide, please. So I thought I'll introduce by showing you pictures. I'm not sure whether you've been into the school library, but at least these pictures will definitely show you what are the kind of environment that the children are reading in. There are books in the left-hand corner. If you look at the books on the left-hand corner, there are books that are on different topics and different, they are new books, new arrivals or new titles. So we put them in a specific location to promote those books as well. Then you can see in the center, there's a TV screen. That's the area where they have certain activities taking place as well. And easy fiction books, usually the P1, P2 children, they are all seated there or borrowing books from this particular section. When they are having storytelling and the TV screen that they have there, sometimes we have fairy tale stories on a daily basis as well. And that will be played at the screen there. And on the right-hand side, the right-hand corner, top corner, there are books from character development books. So some of these books on the magazines, they are reference books. They're not allowed to be brought out, but you will see that your children will come in during lunchtime, during after school, and they come in and they sit down and read as well, especially the Young Scientist book. That's a popular one. Then the other sections, as you can see, they're all organized in such a way that they have fiction books. The mother tongue books are also available in a different section, which is not in this picture. Now, in the bottom right-hand corner, what you can see is an author, the author of the month. So every month we promote an author and we promote the books by the author. So the children can actually get to see what kind of books that the author has written. Sometimes we also have authors coming in, which I'll talk about later. So the thematic display that you see in the middle is for occasions like all our festivals, right? Chinese New Year, recently we had Hari Raya. And besides that, we also have like International Friendship Day, Total Defense Day. And this is not just one language, it's sometimes in multi-language as well, right? So we have Tamil books, Tamil display corners, Chinese display corners, Malay display corners as well. So the themes and thematic is also occasionally changed. Next slide, please. So now I'll talk about the OPEC system, which is an online public access catalog. Now we are just starting into this one. So we just have one device right now in our library at the moment for the children to use and find out what are the kind of books that they have in our school library. Now they are just about learning to access this. And so we are thinking of getting our English teachers to, during the English library period, to actually teach them and go through this with them. By term 3, we are hoping to have 3 more devices in this place, hoping that it's not just a self-directed kind of thing where they can go and search for the books themselves. Currently, the practice is that they go up to the librarian. We have a school librarian, and they ask her, "Can I have this book?" And then she goes and tells them where exactly it is. If you see at the bottom left-hand corner, My School Library, this is an app that you can actually download. We don't encourage our children to bring phones to school, though they do have devices and all that. But I think as parents, if you wish to find out about your children, you can also download this app and in your phone, and then maybe use that to also find out what are the books available in our school library. Next slide, please. So this is the process of getting in itself. So staff, students, parents, we can all use the same link, but at the same time, the access account is like this, right? And this is something that the English teachers will be teaching the children during the library periods in the coming weeks. And so after post exams, okay? And then after that, hopefully they'll be able to go on their own. Because the P3 to higher levels, they're all iPad trained as well. So this might be easier for them than the P1, P2s. The little ones might be needing a little bit more assistance on this one. Next slide, please. So we come now to the programs, the reading programs. Again, we have quite a number of programs for the children to support their reading habits as well. So the very first one we have right in the morning, at 7:10 to 7:30 is the morning reading program. And all our programs are bilingual. So you can actually see that Monday to Wednesday, they read English books. And Thursday and Friday, we keep it to mother tongue books. The library is actually open at 7 o'clock. Madam Siti comes in as early as 7 so that the children can actually, if they do not have a book with them, they can pick one book and then go and start their reading program in the different areas that they're supposed to be at for the day. So the library orientation program, the bottom right-hand corner, you see Madam Siti introducing. It's completely done by her, and she gave all 7 classes an orientation session. So they are trained from primary 1 itself, where the locations are for the books, at the same time, how to use the library in an appropriate manner. And from the library periods that are scheduled for the P1s and P2 admirals, I can see that, they actually come in, you see on the left-hand corner, they know how to queue up and loan out the books. They sometimes ask the teachers for the, the suggestions about the books. They actually go up to the teachers and do that as well. And this library period is very, very good for the children, especially the younger ones, because they might not be so familiar with what kind of books to borrow. And so there's a lot of interaction between the teacher and the children when they have these library periods. We keep it for the P1 and P2 compulsory kind of thing for them to come in. But the P3s to the P6s and the mother tongue teachers, we actually invite them because we might not be able to schedule for everybody to come in. So it's according to, and also the P3s to upwards, they have this extended programs where the books from the beginning of the year is put into a container and sent up to the classes. They actually have the books available in the classes. So there is no need for them to come down, but the invitation is given out to them because we still feel that when they bring in the children to the library itself, there is a familiarization of this space, and they get to be, take ownership of the library as well. And as you can see at the top right-hand corner, that's a P5 class, if I'm not wrong, Madam Wong's class. And they are having a program in the library itself where Madam Wong is actually introducing books to them. And so this is also why we invite the other levels to come in and join as well. So the teachers also are promoting books, not just in the classrooms, but also in the library. Then we have promoting the new books on the TV screens. The TV screens that are not just language-based, but also new titles, new books and things. Sometimes messaging as well, because we need to let them know what are the programs that are happening there. Now, the March reading challenge that we had, it's something similar to the one that Ms. Ho mentioned about the atomic habits. So it's about getting little habits. So that March period, they were supposed to do a challenge of about 5 or 10 minutes. They decide. It's strictly done by them, and ownership is also to them. So this is to be done at home. So that's why the parents would have been able to, and there was a note out there as well, that parents can also participate in the reading time. It's like a family reading time. So you can get like 5 minutes to 10 minutes done. If you notice that the child's March sheet has 2 ticks, that's because of the bilingualism thing. So if the child just wanted to do one language, that's fine. The choice is still theirs. So this child has actually decided to do 2. So 5 minutes or maybe 10 minutes, depending on the child, and then 2 ticks to show that it. And because it was during the March holidays, there were some children who asked this question: what if I am going overseas for a trip? And then I said, the choice is yours. If you want to keep to the habit, if you want to create that habit, then you might want to do it just 5 minutes. And if you are overseas, it doesn't mean that they must carry the book along. It can be a reading material that they pick up from the place that they're visiting as well. So currently, we have a champion readers going on, and it's from April to June, and we are it's class-based. It's so Western level kind of thing. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we also have an author talk and book fair. This is something that we like to do because we want to introduce the children to understand how, or in fact, most of the authors, they always encourage the children to read books because that's how they started. And that's how they, in fact, today itself, that's how they become writers, because they love reading, and reading becomes a habit for them until the point where they decide to write on their own. And most of the authors who come and talk about the experiences of writing always speak about the early stage of reading that they had, that rich reading environment that they had, not just in schools, but also at home. And that's why we needed to have this session as well. So you can see from the faces down here, the number of children, they're queuing up to buy the books. So they have to talk first, and then the book fair at the next, immediately after that. Usually in our school, we have it for 2 days. So the day of the talk and the next day itself. And as you can see, there's an author autographing the book as well. Next slide, please. Excuse me. This was just done today, this morning, actually. So this is author, Miss Vivian Teo. She spoke to the children today and talked to them about how her own family background, where she came from, was more of a non-English speaking background. And what she did was she actually made sure that she supported herself by reading more English books in school, at home, and because of that, both her mother tongue and her English improved in such a way that currently she was a journalist before, and now she is an author as well. And you can see the book sales are just started. So there will be one tomorrow, which you will be signing at the same time. Next slide. So here, this is the book character day. So when the children read the books, and how do they want to depict themselves, or how do they want to carry out some activities with it? So all the books that they've read and all. So what we do is we have like a book character day, which we will have in term 3 as well. This is from last year's collection. And what they do is they come dressed up in the character so if they are readers, they would actually be able to identify with one of the characters that they would be that they can see themselves in, or make that character come alive in the costumes. You can see the teachers also joined in the participation of this. Next slide, please. Thank you. So to promote new arrivals, we don't just use the library, we also leave it extended outwards. So we have video clips of the new titles, and then we have the TV screening done. And it's also nearest to the canteen. If you're familiar with it, the canteen has TV screens around there. So not just within the library, but we also promote it outside the library, so that the children who are going towards the canteen would actually know that, okay, this is the books that are available, they'll come in. Now, this particular section of books that came in, the new topics that came in, it talks about inclusivity. And this is something that we want our children to learn about, because of this diverse nature of children and all that. So we want to have that kind of inclusivity in diversity, which is in the next slide. And that was, next slide, please. That's a video clip, but I'm not playing the video clip for you, but this is what normally happens. The children are shown this clip during the lunch break, and they can actually watch it and learn from it. So inside what each book is about, what is the summary of the book is also shown, plus a little bit about the author itself. Next slide, please. Thank you. So library programs, we have a daily library programs. We try and encourage children to come in if they can come in every day, that's excellent. Now, from Monday, as I was saying just now, the books that they come in, a morning reading. So if they come in even at 7 o'clock, they would be able to pick up a book and go and start reading, even if they don't have one at home and they didn't bring one from home. Every day we have the fairy tale stories for the P1, P2s. We have different lunch timing. So the P1, P2s have a particular lunch timing, which we want to make sure that they have a possibility of coming into the library to have this kind of an enjoyment of reading. At the same time, they can also watch fairy tales. There are designated days for certain events as well. So Wednesdays, the PSG has come on board to support us with this particular storytelling. So you actually can see our PSG supporting us for especially the P1s and 2s. They are telling stories to them and interacting with them, which I'll show you a picture in a short while. And if it's not their storytelling, then it'll be fairy tales. Storytelling is also done by ad hoc basis by the teachers, because we need to be free during the lunchtime in order to come in and get it done. Games time, or games at lunch, I call it, is something that we get our P3s to P6 to do. They come in. It started actually this term when the fasting month started. The numbers were huge because they were coming in. They were not going out for lunch, and so they came in and they started the ball rolling, and they had the games at lunch, and they started interacting with each other. So TV broadcast is something that we do in the library as well. So we have sometimes language activities, which we also put up. And on Fridays as well, they have storytelling, sometimes ad hoc basis by the teachers. So if you see the little colorful picture, that's our notice board. We do actually have a notice board just outside the HOD room, and the program is also up on that board. And some of the activities that are done by the children, some English activities at the same time. We also have some library charts done by the library Admiral librarians, and it's also up on the chart. Next slide, please. So this is the storytelling done by the PSG, as I mentioned earlier. They've been supporting us very well, and you've seen this from this term onwards. They've been coming every Wednesday, and we are even bilingual in this one. So one of the sessions, the teacher brought in a Malay book, and if you see the third picture, that's a Malay book that is being read, and the children who are coming in are not just the children who are Malay children, but we have children from the other non-Malay children coming in. And what she did was she translated some, and she actually did bilingual side as well. And it was really interesting because the boy who was answering the question is actually counting the number of, very interactive, counting the number of ducks, and they learn the name as well in that language. and the same thing for the other parents as well. I think the most of them did the English books, but there were some who came in with the intention of doing both things. Of course, the timing is the main thing because it's held during lunch. We have very limited time, about 40 minutes or so, and by the time they eat and come, there might be some difficulty. Might not be for everybody. So if your child comes home and says, "I didn't get to hear the story today," it's because the timing probably didn't work out. We always make an announcement to the children to let them know what language books is going to be read that day. And so they are informed about it as well. So if they're interested, they can actually come in during the lunchtime. So sometimes they stagger. So they come in first, listen to the story, then they go off and have their lunch because the queues do get long at the beginning. Next slide, please. So this is a storytelling at hog basis by the teachers. So we've also come on board and started telling stories. And from the interaction, the right-hand side, you see Madam Nala, who's a Tamil teacher, and she came in with the Tamil students who came in. She was using the book to talk, and then the other children naturally came in and sat down, and they started listening to the Tamil book at the same time. So she switched and she started translating it at the same time. So she was reading it, and then she interpreted it, and then she asked questions. In fact, she taught them 3 words in Tamil for that session there. And you can see the teachers also have come on board storytelling. Now, why storytelling? Because this is something that we really want to, when we're watching the storytelling going on, in the classrooms, of course, for the younger ones, we do have the stellar books that we read. But right now in the library, when we are supporting them with the storytelling, they're getting closer to the book. They're understanding what the book is about. At the same time, we're giving them, the teachers are also finding it fun to make sure that, they have that kind of interaction where they can ask questions. And the books, most of the books are from the library. So after promoting, like Madam Chong did today, she didn't finish the book. What she did was she stopped at a point and she said, okay, now you can go off for your lunch. But if you want to read on the book, I'll put it here. It's from the library. You can find out where you can get it. So she just mentioned the title of the story and to get that from the library itself. So it's a good way of promoting to our children the books from our library as well. Next slide, please. So this is the next upcoming program. The question mark is, we do not know whether it's your child who's going to be running the program, but that could be the photo that's going to come on that screen there. So storytelling storytelling at lunch by student leaders. So we're going to go on with the student leaders. Now, if you notice, the P1, P2s are the ones having the storytelling week. So that means the upper primary children have to come down to tell, which means they would miss out on maybe 5 or 10 minutes of their lesson time. But I wouldn't call it a miss because this is something of a learning experience for them. So the children, I would rather have them volunteer for this because if they volunteer, then it also shows that this is what they want to do as leaders, impact other and have the advocacy in them as well about books. Next slide, please. So games at lunch, you might want to ask me why games and why reading. So I'll explain it as well. Games at lunch is one of the initiatives that we've done to get them to come into the library. In order for the children to understand what books we have in the library, it's very important to invite them into the library. And as you can see, from this term onwards, they've been coming in, especially during lunchtime, and they're actually playing the games. But some of the games, especially the games like Boggle and Upward and Scrabble, these are word games. And the word games, they realize that they don't have sufficient words in their vocabulary. They need more words. They need to have a wider knowledge of a greater vocabulary. So what they do is that as they're playing, they're picking up words from their friends. They're learning new words at the same time. Or if they feel that they're not sufficient, then that's where the reading comes in. That's where we come in as adults. We walk around and said, okay, maybe you want to increase your knowledge by reading more books. And so word bank, writing words into the word bank, something the P1, P2 teachers actually encourage as well. So when they come across a new word, they add it into the list of words. And so those words can actually be useful in the games. Now, if you looked at the games, this is not just English Scrabble games, they're mother tongue Scrabbles. Madam Hamima actually sent down her own personal sets of games as well, so they are playing some of the children who came in, they are playing the games in different languages as well. Some games are traditional games, which we also introduced, but that's more for interaction because playing games actually brings about a lot of communication and the children are sharing words and ideas at the same time. Strategy games like the one you see, Reversi, and I think another game, Counterfoil, is another one that's very popular with children. So when they form this group, some of these children who actually started it were not actually speaking to each other kind of thing. They were on their own kind. But by the time they play the games, they all come together and they start forming friendship, and which is a very powerful thing as well. So through their reading habits, through their activities in the library itself, they are learning to grow the vocabulary as well, learning to love books and the environment of the library as well. Next slide, please. So read at lunch is us deciding that it should be pervasive in school. It's not to be just in one location. The library shouldn't be the only place where we have books. And so we actually have these. We started with the Toyogo box, and when we realized that the children find it difficult, especially P1, P2 children, when they're trying to dig up a book from underneath, they get tired and then they sit back. So the older ones seem to be a little bit more, like in the second picture, they're not sure whether they want to spend time running around, and they have the alternate game week thing. So some days when they're just seated there without anything to do, sometimes they're just chatting. So that read at lunch came up because of that. And so we've moved from the Toyogo box. Right now we have the shelves that you see on the right-hand side. They've become the shelves, and they're very well kept. The children are actually taking care of it themselves, so they see that the books are sliding down, then they go and put it up. The ones at the bottom, the left, they've been there for a year or two, so it's a bit old. But these were introduced because on the morning programs, when the children come in, there were many children who didn't bring the books with them because they're rushing to come to school, or they might have already finished reading the book. So we kept these books so that they can just pick up, and there are also mother tongue books in there. They can just pick them up and go and read it without being, so that they're actively reading during the morning programs. And as you saw just now, it's a whole school approach. So even the teachers are reading, which means we need our books as well. So we already introduced in our staff room, the staff library. So the teachers have easy access to books. These books are all donated by our school leaders, the staff, teachers, everybody came in together. They put their books in, and we've got a good collection for ourselves right now. Next slide. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jane. All right, I will share with you some useful resources that you can consider. Some digital resources. I think we have talked quite a lot about print materials, print books, and research has also shown that for the younger children, we should try to expose them to print materials as much as possible. And then, as mentioned, digital apps can be also used to help our children to read, to complement our children's reading, because they have got affordances such as the audio functions, etc. And as parents, we should be able to help them to be naturalized, socialized to using these apps, to walk them through how to benefit from using these apps, how to navigate these apps. So one of the resources that you can consider is that the National Library Board's website has got recommended ebooks by specific levels. So if you're wondering, for my P1 primary 1 child, what kind of books are recommended for him or her, you can click on these links. We will think about how we can send these links to you again, but we have actually sent these very useful links to you through the Term 1 Parents Letter. So you can check the Term 1 Parents Letter for the website links to this National Library Board's resources. So once you click on these links, it will lead you to a page that looks like that. So this Discover Reads has all these ebooks that you could either access through this page, or you could use an app that I will share with you more on, which is called Libby, where you can use as a digital reader to read these digital books within the app itself. Okay, so for this particular Discover Reads P3 level, you will see that these are the recommended books that have been recommended by the National Library Board. Yeah, and the website is quite accessible once you go to their National Library Board website. And if you could download the NLB mobile app, this application allows you to access National Library Board's catalogue, to reserve, to borrow NLB's ebooks, not just ebooks, but also audiobooks, as well as online courses that can be very useful, and other resources. So using the phone, actually, we highly recommend you to use a bigger screen, such as your iPad or your Android devices. You could, for example, borrow the books, both the prints as well as the ebook versions. And then you can also click on Read in Libby. So what is Libby? The NLB mobile app does not allow us to read offline. So one of the benefits of Libby is that it allows us to download these ebooks that we have borrowed from NLB's either through the EB app or the NLB app, to be able to access them even when we are offline. So we can read them as we commute from place to place. And yeah, these are the examples of the ebooks that we can download, and they can even allow us to access audiobooks. The benefits of audiobooks is that some child may be able to read better when it's complemented by some kind of audio aid, or some kind of animation that you can access through the animated books through the resources such as the NLB's website. Okay, so we would like to just wrap up our town hall with a summary of the tips. We have mentioned quite a bit in different sections. So to summarize what we would like to partner you in, it will be firstly to encourage everyone to create cozy places for your children to be able to access books at home. These books could be either bought, or you could borrow them from our National Library Board or school library. And also to build reading time intentionally, purposefully into your children's schedules, to read with your children. And if you prefer using reading apps for their multimedia affordances, for example, the audio functions that we mentioned, you could use them with them and to teach them, to use the chance to teach them digital literacy skills as well, to maximize the learning from these apps. And as and when there is an opportunity that arises, we could have conversations around what they are reading currently, or to build on what they have read. And also we could find out what interests our child the most, so that we can find books that support and extend their interest the most. So these are some ways that we could ensure that our children have access to books. We could bring them to the public library frequently to borrow books, or we could encourage them to borrow from the school library. Just now you have heard that we have quite an extensive range of resources in our school library, and the kids love going there. Okay, with that, we have come to the Q&A segment. We are going to invite one of our parents. She has 3 boys in our school, and they are avid readers. One of them is in my class, and he's always seen a little book. So we would really like to invite Miss Michelle to share with us. This was one of the questions that one of the parents asked during our recent town hall on the P5 revised syllabus as well. How do I encourage my child to read beyond comics? So over to you, Michelle. Maybe you could share with us what are some tips.
Thank you, Miss Ho. I'm Michelle. I have 3 boys in the school. So how do I encourage my child to read beyond comics? Actually, we started off with comics because it saved a lot of time. And my boys learned the vocabulary from there, which eventually they find that they cannot put it in their comprehension. And hence, they do not have the right vocab to use to put in their comprehension, and teacher says that, this is not the right word. And also, when they were talking among the brothers, they were not able to articulate themselves, that how to express themselves, that what they are trying to say. So as my oldest boys are in P4, so he come to a point where he realized that he can't write a proper composition, where the teacher couldn't find a way to give him a point, and hence he will have to find books that actually help him to expand his vocabulary. And for my number 2 boy is with Miss Ho. So as what Miss Ho shared, he's a role model of our house. Actually, he really curious about everything, and he's very attentive. And he reads, he will find out, we have our screen time. He will use the time to Google what we have mentioned and what does it mean. And he would expand and share it with the brothers. And for my youngest, because he's being P2, and always the youngest, the parents would have a soft spot. We will be like, it's okay. Over time, he will get to know what to do. And because teacher encourage that to read more, hence my youngest would be interested. I want to be the leader of reading. I would like to show that among the class that I could read as well, not because I'm the youngest. I have 2 koko, 2 older brother, that I'm less of them. And hence, naturally, being competitive, they would like to read as well. So this is how I realized from my son that how they go beyond reading comics. And the other thing that is really important is the role model part, where so I myself, I don't read as much as the teachers, but then if I were to make a conscious choice, like what Miss Sharon shared, that whether we read, the children will see that, oh, mommy is reading. I have no choice, but I have to read as well. And because my P4 needs to really expand the number of words for his composition, so he has no choice, but we can't watch TV, we won't have a screen time, we can't play games, so they will read as well. There's no other choice. So like what Miss Ho shared that you have to intentionally put a time for reading. So our house reading time is always before sleep. And I find that is useful, especially it actually ping them to think that what mommy mentioned, the vocab that I don't understand, I would like to find out the next day. Or they would immediately, can I use the phone for another 5 minutes to find out what it is? And before sleep, if they were to find out what the meaning of it, they were able to remember more for next day. So, and that is very important. Role modeling and the intentional reading time, that is cannot be, there's no shortcut, in short. And also how to the interest. So because my P4, I have a P4, then I'm able to share among the three. And because P4 is not just writing a fairy tale or a fiction, so we intentionally news time, we have to listen to news, bilingual. So it will be a Mandarin news time where they would learn Mandarin. And then before sleep, after reading, we will either share what is ongoing, what is the current news, that how can you express yourself in Mandarin or in English, then what is your view? So that actually gives them chance to express themselves. So should they not able to tell in an adult way or in a proper way that the younger brother or the older brother could understand, they will want to find out that, oh, how can I do that? And we would challenge each other, sees that another way is how many books that what we are reading. So my oldest has a series of Harry Potter book. He always says that he has already completed book 1, but we know that he's just flipped through because it's a bit too hard. It's a very thick book. So then we have extended family members at home as well. So we always challenge each other that, so which page you have read and what is the word that you doesn't know. So we will pick up the book. So you mentioned that you have already read page 9, say for example, we'll find a word on it that, do you know what is the meaning of it? So if he can't tell what it is, that means that he actually didn't read, or actually he read and he didn't want to find out. So then on the spot, we will actually find out what is the meaning of it and how we can use it. So without telling the answer first, we'll let our boys to let us know what is the meaning, make a guess. You can always guess, and in what context you can use this vocab. So that also help they want to read more and also want to learn more and find out more what it is. Yep, I think this is the tips that what we always do at home.
Thank you so much, Miss Michelle, for sharing very practical tips. I think is every child is unique, and what she has shared is really the different kinds of strategies that
Yes.
works on the different children that she has in her home. And I really want to assure everyone that not to worry. It takes really small, consistent steps to make something into a habit, just like how we mentioned the atomic habits. So if the child could start today and to really start somewhere, to start reading something that he or she is interested in, and then slowly building that that habit, and then it becomes something that he or she will want to do it naturally on their own. I think that will be really a great start. Okay,
Could
so
I
maybe
add on
right
to that,
now,
please? Could I just
yes,
add on to that?
please,
So
please,
about
yes, Miss
going
Jane.
beyond comics, this idea that if you were to read to the child, if the children are reading comic, that's perfectly fine. But if you brought in a book as parent, if you brought in a book which is with more wordy kind of thing, start reading to them that book or sharing with them about the story. Tell them as a story, and then get them hooked on wanting to find out from that book itself. So that way they will actually move slowly away from comics and into books, fiction books. Start with easy fiction and then move on to fiction books itself. So that's another thing that you can do as parents to move them away from comic.
Yeah. So I think there is another question which is also about how to make my children read more. I think reading is like a sport or an exercise. The more we exercise our reading muscle, the more we will get better at it. So we encourage every child to really start somewhere. It could be just one paragraph today, and then slowly we increase it to one page. And most importantly, we have to encourage the child to love reading, because if it's a forced activity that is not enjoyable, then the child will not want to continue reading when there is no such enforcement in place. So we encourage every parent to really find out from your child what are some of their interests. And then from there, you could possibly recommend some of the books that will support these interests that they have. For example, if they are very interested in animals, we could go to the library, either the National Library, or we could go to the school library. Can encourage them to go and find books that will help to inform them further on these interest areas. And they could, of course, start off with picture books first, comics, and then slowly build their repertoire from there. I think it takes that really small action that will continue into a habit that we would like to continue for as long as they would be able to sustain this. Okay, I think we have answered all the questions
There was
in
a
the
question.
Q&A segment.
There was a question on the list of books. I think I'm not sure which parent, but there was one question on that one about that list itself. So for P3 to P6, they are given extended reading books, so they can actually use those books as part of the reading list. But if we can go beyond that, like what Ms. Host mentioned, there are lists that you can get available in from the National Library as well.
Yeah. So
can I share? I think, especially for P1, P2, if you would like to have the habit of reading, on SLS, there's this very useful video and all that you can actually access. So if you were to go into SLS, I think a lot of P1 and P2 parents that you are not aware how to access to SLS. So I think in P2, the form teacher has already introduced the students how to use SLS. So you could actually get your child to log into SLS and have a look and go browse around. There's a lot of interactive reading videos and as well as suggested reading material that is there. So you don't have to actually crack your head and think that, what should I read to my children? What are the good reading material? On SLS itself, already has a lot of resources that you can actually use to read with your child. So for P1, P2, if you do not have, like, say, 30 minutes is the recommended reading time, you could start off by 5 minutes. So don't take it as a task as though like I'm doing a task, I must make my children read, but take it as a bonding time as well, because after one full day of working, you don't get to see your children. When they talk about the book, they read a little bit, they will be able to share that how was my day, and then they will be able to share that, oh, actually the girl sitting next to me, what does she do? And that actually help them to expand their vocabulary. At the same time, you get to know their daily life, who their friends are. So, and on top of that, if you want to ask them to have a reading habit, you can actually ask your child to influence your friend. Let's read this, let's have a competition kind of thing, that let's share the story that what I've read, and you can do it like our nighttime reading. We won't tell the ending of the story to keep them interested. They wanting to know. So sometimes before I could tell them what is the ending, they would I hide the book. They will actually Google up the title of the book and find what is the ending. And during breakfast time in the morning, they'll say, "Oh, mommy, actually this is what's gonna happen." So they will ask me, "Is this right? Is this wrong?" So you can prolong that and actually really build a very good relationship with your children, and you will find out that what is happening in school, and you could share with among your parents, body, your friends. I actually learned these tips from my parent friend as well, because she's a very good reader. There's no shortcut, and it has to role model, and you have to do it together with your child. And be it if it is a 5 minutes thing or a 10 minutes thing, in no time, actually, if they were to leave primary school, you realize that you want your child to be with you, and it is everything too late already. So you can start off now by 5 minutes every day. That is very sufficient, I think. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So, not to worry. I think we have all these strategies on many different prongs. I think, like what Miss Michelle has mentioned, there are self-directed resources for the child to read more. At the school level, we do have a list of, or rather, a range of books recommended for each level, and there is currently book exchange going on even within the class. And going to the school library as well as the national library, there will be also recommended books for each level if toggling to the website is not as preferred. And I think, Miss Jane, there is this comment about the OPEC access, the schoollibrary.moe.edu.sg
Yes,
slash
I think
Admiralty
that's the
Primary.
one. So what we can do is we'll put it up on Parents Gateway, the link after we've checked it out, and another way is SLS as well. So we are planning to put it on slides, and then the teachers will actually go through the process with the children. So the children will get familiar with it. The My School Library. I think that app you can immediately download and get to use it first. That will tell you the books available in our library. Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for your presence today. We would like to end off with a quote, and that is that every child is a reader. Some just haven't found their favorite book yet. So we wish everyone to help your child to discover their favorite book, and do share with us how this reading journey has been. If you have been exploring some of these tips as well, do share with us. And also watch out for some of the follow-up materials that we'll be sending you through the Parents Gateway. We'll be sending you further consolidation of the tips that we have shared, some posters, etc. Once again, thank you so much, and we apologize for the technical difficulties that we faced at the start. Yeah, we hope that this session would have been insightful for you, and thank you very much for joining us once again. Thank you.